What the f*** do you mean what am I talking about?
Out here talking
You! Minor league mother is what you are.
I'll tell you guys something right now. It's not easy to be a champion, all right? It's the hardest thing there is to do. Are you guys that good? You're not. I'll tell you that right the now. Wise up. Buddy, go ahead and say what the you want to say.
All right, so why don't we do that? Welcome to this week's episode. It's 86, the Wally Backman Show. I am Bruce Jacobs, and right there, the bearded wonder, fresh from his meeting with the Kraken on the high seas, that sea monster, our hero, former New York Met, 86 world champion Wally Backman. Great to see you, Wally. I'm glad you survived your adventures of the high sea, my friend.
Hey, it's been a weird week. I broke an eardrum, caught a lot of fish, but I'm surviving and I'm getting better.
All right, so how did you break an eardrum?
Well, I went to New York the week before last week, and I tried to pop my ears. You know, you stick your fingers by your nose or whatever, and I blew and they popped and they broke. So I was told by the doctor, don't do that anymore. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay away from these 6 words. They blew, I popped, that's it.
It doesn't work all the time.
Oh, man. All right, well, listen, I'm glad you can hear me. I'll speak up at any time. I've never had a problem speaking loud. It's great to see you. Glad you can hear me. And we've got 2 big things. Let's get right to it, Wally. A little high heat for this week's episode.
I like it. I'm all for it. You go ahead. Continue. You start this off.
All right, first thing on the board. Okay, first thing, Wally. Let's not quickly. Let's talk about David Stearns, the Mets president of baseball operations. Not opening up a Pandora's box. I think it's a good debate, actually. I think debate is fun. When debate is passionate, make your point. Before we get to that, Francisco Lindor hits a nice mark against the Red Sox on, I believe, Tuesday night. Francisco Lindor, or maybe Monday night, Francisco Lindor steps up. And let's turn it over to great Gary Cohen, friend of the show in SNY.
Neal at first with 2 out. Very short lead for Jeff. Francisco Lindor struck out his first time up. And Lindor gets one in the air to right field. O'Neill back near the wall. It's out of here. Francisco Lindor strikes again, his 30th home run of the season. The 5th time in Lindor's career he's reached 30 home runs. He continues his MVP charge, and he gives the Mets a 2-0 lead in the 3rd.
All right, Wally, twofold here. Number one, his MVP charge. That's very interesting. Hard to argue about what Gary Cohen said. Let's go to what Mets president of baseball operations afterward, David Stearns, said about the season that Francisco Lindor is having.
As somebody who analyzes player value, what does the most valuable player look like?
I think he looks like the guy who runs out the shortstop every day for us at 7 o'clock. It's been an unbelievable season to watch. We're getting to the point, I think, where we're talking about perhaps the greatest individual position player season in the history of this franchise.
Okay, Wally, a lot of ex-Mets have been chiming in. They've got blood in the game. Various opinions. I find this debate to be really fascinating. I think he's got a little bit of validity of what David Stearns said. But what's your thoughts? And I know you've got a case to make for a bunch of former Mets. Or do you think his statement is completely ridiculous?
No, I don't think it's completely ridiculous. I think that he's done a great job with that organization. But you know what? I love Lindor. He's a great player. I know that he got his 30th home run, and they're maybe the greatest season a Met had ever had. I just got to go over just a couple of stats, and I'm not even going to mention Darryl Strawberry in this. with our guest coming up, Hojo. Well, let's go to Lindor. As of yesterday, had 633 plate appearances, 155 hits, 37 doubles, a triple, 30 home runs, and 26 stolen bases. Now let's go to our guest, Howard Johnson. In 91, in 658 plate appearances, which includes walks and hit by pitchers and all that kind of stuff, he had 146 hits, 9 less hits than Lindor has right now. But he had 34 doubles, 4 triples, 38 home runs, and stole 30 bases. He was the third guy in the National League behind Willie Mays and I believe Willie McCovey to do the 30-30 club. So those are both Hall of Famers. So I can't count Howard Johnson out of having the best year. And you know, I'll go to Jose Reyes real quick. I was coaching first.
Okay.
Mookie Wilson was the first base coach, and Mookie had to go home because his sister passed away, unfortunately. Jose Reyes won the batting title. I think it was in 2008. He had 688 at-bats. One of the only 2 guys in Mets history that had 200 hits. And I'll save the other guy for last because I'm even more impressed, I think. But Jose had 204 hits, 37 doubles, 19 triples. Unheard of. 16 home runs. He only drove in 56 runs, but he's a leadoff hitter, but he stole 56 bases that year. Now, I can remember coaching first, and it was against Ryan Braun, who was his competition that year to win the batting title. And Jose said to me, he says, "What do you think I should do?" I mean, he's leading off the game. I said, "Jose, just lay down a bunt. Get a base hit." He got a lot of heat and a lot of pressure for coming out of the game. But I will say that I was one of the guys at first base. He says, "Wally, what should I do?" I says, "You got to take yourself out of the game." I says, "This guy has sat out for however many days it was to see what Jose Reyes was going to do to try to make the race closer. And when Jose bunted for that base hit, he made it where Ryan Braun had to get 4 hits that game." And I says, that don't happen very often. And so I know Jose took a lot of heat for it. I should have probably taken the heat.
A lot of heat.
I could have. You know, I mean, it was
Bruce,
it was a special event. It's a huge achievement to do what Jose did.
Yeah. And the game did not have playoff or postseason implication, which is, critical in my way of thinking.
Well, when you're talking about one of the greatest players, and there's a lot of people, I mean, I could tell you about Keith Hernandez, what he did for the Mets to help us win the World Series, or Gary Carter. Those are meaningful additions that help you. And it's just, hey, I'm glad he made the statement. I respect the man. I love Jose. I love Lindor. He's a great player. He's a huge addition. If the Mets can come out of this, a half a game behind in the wild card as we speak today, if they can come through this and that man helps them get to the playoffs and go however far they can go, I agree with the man.
All right. That's interesting because, there are other Mike Piazza who had some great seasons. Lance Johnson had statistically the best season in Mets history. Lance Johnson had 237 hits in 1996, stole 56 bases. Now, the Mets finished 71 and 91. But just statistically, see, what David Stern opened himself up to, and again, I appreciate it. I like the debate. It's a fun debate. You got Edgardo Alfonso you could consider. But what Cleon Jones hit, almost 360 the year the Mets won the World Series. Not great power numbers, 16 home runs, almost 60 or 60-something ribs, etc. When you don't have, the Mets have had one, in my opinion, one They've had some really, really good high-end offensive, one prolific offensive ball player, and that's Mike Piazza. He's the only, in my opinion, no disrespect to Gary and Keith, Daryl, Hojo, Lindor. Boy, I tell you, man, tough to beat Mike Piazza for me. And the season that he, you know what I'm saying? Well, this is why this is such a good debate. It really is not a wrong answer. It's your
No, there
opinion.
isn't. No, big power hitter Piazza in his day played in, let's say, the older stadiums, a few of the new stadiums. The stadiums were way bigger in the 90s, the 80s,
Yes.
and 90s. They were bigger stadiums,
That's right.
a lot of foul ground territory, and they've shrunk those stadiums, which is great to bring the fans in closer to the players. But, it's tough to say. I will say this. I'm a Lindor fan. I don't disagree with Stearns, but I disagree with who was the best player on any given year that had the biggest year for the Mets. Maybe we can get David Stearns on here at some point in time. I don't know if he'll do it, but maybe we can get him on here and we can have this same discussion, because I know he's a lifetime Met fan, and I have been too. I know you have been too, but it'd be great.
Yeah, listen, I don't want the audience to know to not think that I did my research on Wally. You hit 332 in 1986. 332, Wally. 332. Now I don't have all the rest of your numbers, but 332 on a championship ball club. I mean, again, this is very subjective, right? It's like saying, man, that woman is gorgeous. Well,
the last thing,
8 of us could think she's gorgeous. 2 could think she's mediocre or less. I mean,
yeah,
very hard.
The last thing that I would say about who's the best player, I don't know if there really is one that you could pick out, but it's how they fit with the team. Because I will tell you this, winning a world championship, I can go through the 25 guys on the roster that were there for the biggest part of the season, and I can tell you each individual had a part of us winning. It's not one guy that made us a world champion. It was 25 guys together running on the same train track, and for us to be able to win, or it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, Wally, let's get to some wild card situations real quickly. This is the schedule going forward and I think it's 4 teams in 3 spots. Forget the Cubs, forget the Pirates, forget the Cardinals. They've all played their way off playoff island as far as I'm concerned. Okay, to me, it's Diamondbacks, Padres, Braves, Mets. And 3 of those teams are going to the party. 1 is not. Atlanta has Toronto, Washington, and the Dodgers, 4 games against LA. That's their next 3 series, okay? They are home to Toronto, at Washington, home to the Dodgers. The Mets, they're home to Cincinnati, at Toronto, and then 3 at Philly, and they have 7 games. I'll just mention that real briefly. 7 games. And by the way, the Phillies have not clinched the East by any means yet, okay? They're bumping along a little bit. So that's the Mets. Boston, they have Cincinnati, Toronto, Philly. Arizona, after they finish up this series with San Francisco, they play 3 at Houston, 2 at home versus Texas, and 4 with Milwaukee. That's their next 3 series. And finally, San Diego. And when they finish up with this series, right now they play 3 with the Giants, 3 with Houston, and 3 with the White Sox. So that's 3 guaranteed wins.
Yeah, no, there's supposed to be 3 guaranteed wins. There's no doubt. The White Sox, I'll talk about them in a minute. But
we'll get to that.
I think the Mets have a tougher schedule than the Braves. But the way the Mets have been playing, I think they can overcome it. Because they do have a stretch where there's 7 games or whatever against Philly, and they got to play the Braves. I think those 3 games against the Braves, a lot of people think, well, the Phillies is important. I think it's important too. But the way the Mets and the Braves are right now, I think those 3 games could mean the whole season. So
And that's the second to last series of the year.
I know it's right
Against
there
those,
at the
those
end,
three,
which
yeah.
I remember in I think it was '87, or it might have been '85. We went into St. Louis.
Oh,
And
you
we
had all
were
those games against the Cardinals.
games against the Cardinals, and we had to go in against the Cardinals, and we were, I think, 3 games out with 6 games to go. 3 against Cardinals, 3 against Pirates, and we beat the Cardinals first 2 games. So we were a game out, loaded the bases in the first inning. George Foster hit a ground ball to the pitcher on a 3-0 count, double play.
Yeah.
I was on third.
Yeah.
And we ended up losing that game. But we
Yeah.
did good against the Pirates, but we lost. We won 99 games that year. So, a lot of crazy things can happen. Health is an issue. It's when you're playing a team that's really hot. The Mets are hot right now. They can beat a lot of teams right now. If they can carry it over to the end of the season, trust me, I will be there to watch the playoffs.
Oh man, can't wait. All right, so that's a look at the wild card, and again, the Phillies do not have the NL East clinched by any means. Milwaukee is on the verge of clinching the NL Central. And Wally, real fast, would you agree or disagree with this comment? The Mets went 7-3 on that huge West Coast trip. They would have gone 9-1, save for 2 pitches, 2 games yacked up by Diaz. In my opinion, Edwin Diaz is the most important. Forget about Lindor and look, we can run it down. They're all important. Every single one of these guys is important. If Diaz doesn't pitch well, the Mets can't win. Won't. Let me rephrase. If Diaz does not pitch well, the Mets will not make it to the wild card round.
There's no chance they make it. Diaz has to get back to form. I've tried to tell people that, when he got hurt last year in the World Baseball Classics or whatever, to take a year off, that's hard on a professional athlete at any different level. It doesn't matter what sport it is. It's hard for them to get back. This kid, I love him to death. He needs to get back where he dominates. And if he does dominate, I'm going to pick the Mets over the Braves. If he doesn't, then it's a whole different story. But I would like to see this kid dominate again.
I like your prediction. All right. Howard Johnson is coming up in the next segment. Before we go to that, I want to thank the audience for the tremendous growth of this program after 4 weeks. We've got a lot of kudos from our guests that we've had on: Eddie Lynch, Gary Cohen, Mookie Wilson, to name 3 of them. If you want to get a hold of the show via social media, and we will go over some comments left by the fans. There are many ways for you to get in contact with this program. First off, you can get Wally on X at Wally_Backman6. YouTube, it's youtube.com/86'D, 86. Instagram, Wally Backman 86. You can get me on email at chbr40@gmail.com. And Facebook is now there for you as well. 86th Wally Backman. And you can find him. He's standing in front of this huge mass of food. Is that what is that? What is that mass of food that you're standing with that big smile on your Facebook page?
Oh, that
What
was
is that?
I just cooked that the other day. That's hibachi.
Okay.
That's fried rice. It's got eggs in it, peas, carrots, and lobster, shrimp, and steak.
Oof.
And I was ordered by my brother, Mike, who I fish together with all the time. He says, God, you got to make that hibachi before you leave. And so I left yesterday to come back home because I had a doctor's appointment or whatever for my stupid ear. But I made it for him, and my daughter put that on there for us. And Tasha, I got to give her a lot of credit. She helps me with this stuff tremendously with the social media stuff because it's a lot. I mean,
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I'm not a computer wizard, but we talk. My daughter and I, we talk every day about, Dad, what do we want to put on here? Blah, 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 whatever it might be. And I'm saying toss. We just send pictures back and forth, for the fans to see. And we've had great responses. And I'll continue to get all that stuff out there for the fans. But I really do want, I think, more questions from the fans on Facebook, because it's easier for me to see that, to where I don't have to go through so much stuff. But I mean, they can send me questions on X and all that kind of stuff, but Facebook seems to be easier. And the only reason I'll say that is because of my daughter, Natasha.
Yeah. Might as well gay. When it's a fact, it's a fact. So all social media interactions, we read them all. We will air a few. Coming up, Mets legend Howard Johnson will join us next. We'll talk some cooking and some baseball and who knows what else.
2-2 to Johnson with 1 out and 2 on. And he hits it deep to right field. Parker going back. It's Taylor time. This ball's out of here. Howard Johnson with a 3-run home run.
All right, we have a great guest lined up today. Wally has lined us up, a member of the 86 world champion New York Mets, and one of the few Mets to have some world championship experience, having just won with the Detroit Tigers. And we welcome to the program this week Howard Johnson. Hojo, great to have you on. Bruce here, and you, of course, know Wally up there. Look at that nice little beard your ex-teammate has there. Look at that.
I know. I noticed that. Man. He's got a lot. He's got a lot going on there.
No, I do. Hojo, I've been
awesome.
fishing and I put some pictures on Facebook, and you got to take a look at some of those fish. Bruce, one of the funny things about me and Hojo is I had a boat in Hawaii. He came over and fished with me. Caught a marlin, a mako shark, a tuna, all in the same day. Got sick, I think.
Unbelievable.
Him and his wife were out there. We had a blast. One of the questions, Hojo, that I want to ask you is the first thing I want to say is the home run against Todd Worrell. You hit that off the freaking clock, I think. I mean, that was impressive. I remember Whitey Herzog stole your bat, and they wanted to do all that crap.
Oh my gosh!
Hey, you were you had power, buddy. Strongest hands I ever gripped.
Well, I was a good fastball hitter, Waldo. That was my bread and butter, and especially back then, I really didn't have a good feel for hitting off-speed stuff. And so they used to always say, the best way to hit a breaking ball is don't miss the fastball. So that was my mindset. And when you got a power guy on the mound, you got to look for it. And he put it in a spot, and I hit it. And it went pretty well.
No, yeah, that ball was hit probably. I bet it was close to 500 feet. That clock's a long ways out there.
Well, it was a good shot. I knew when it left the bat, it was going to be a homer. And in that ballpark, that was pretty good because it was big. You remember how big that place was?
Yeah, it was a big ballpark. But
wow.
So, Hojo, do you know Todd Worrell? Do you know him personally? Because I have got to ask you. I always wanted to ask him one question. Why do you keep trying to throw a fastball? You're not good enough. No disrespect. He had a good fastball. They said about hitting a 1-iron. Only 2 people can hit a 1-iron. If you golf, you'll Jack Nicklaus and God.
That's right.
Okay, there's only 2 people I think that could throw a fastball by Hojo. Nolan Ryan and God. Everybody else, you're wasting your time.
I disagree.
Yeah, it's funny.
Oh. Okay.
I don't think I've ever met Todd. But I give him a lot of kudos because a lot of pitchers will run. Once they give it up once or twice, they're not coming back in there for more. He kept trying to figure it out. Find the way to get me. And like Wally will tell you, there's certain pitchers that we faced that you hit well that you don't even understand how. Because I hit his fastball. I think I hit a curveball out once. It was just one of those things where. My swing was where he was throwing, and that's about as simple as I can make it.
Interesting.
No, that's awesome. But I gotta later on in the segment, Hojo, I'm going to go to Stern made a comment about who the greatest player was. But later on, I'm going to add you to this, or earlier on, I'm going to add you to this because that 91 season you had was a great year, buddy. Do you know your stats from 91, Hojo?
I appreciate it. Yeah. They
I
went
can
bad.
tell you. You had 658 appearances, 146 hits, 34 doubles, 4 triples, 38 home runs, and 30 stolen bases. So I'm going to go over this a little bit later with Bruce, but God, I didn't know that you had that type of year that year. That was incredible. I mean,
yeah.
it just, it's one of those years, but yeah, no.
Yeah. That was my final good year. My last good year that I had was 91. And after that, my body started breaking down. But I remember 91 as being, I started off pretty well that year. Normally I don't. I'm a very slow starter. And I got off to a decent start, not a great start, but a decent start, and hit some big homers early in the season. And it started to build on itself. And by the time the weather got nice, I was already in a groove, and so I was able to just continue it. But yeah, you know what? It was just one of those things where every year is different. You never know what's going to happen to you in a year. You can look at guys today, look at Pete Alonso. I mean, a great 4 or 5 years, and then this year he's having a decent year, but by his standards, it's not a great year. It's just one of those things. And some years you just have great years and you can't put your finger on it. That was one of those years that I really couldn't say one thing did it or didn't. I think it was just a time of experience and playing every day, and just things happen for my favor quite a bit.
Hojo, as I go back and I refresh, some of your career highlights, the ups and the downs, and we'll talk a few about both of them, the ups and the downs that you experienced. But for people that forget, you I don't know if you still do, held the National League record for home runs by a switch hitter, passing a Hall of Famer, Ted Simmons. Or at one time, you, Willie Mays, and Bobby Bonds were the only 3 players in the history to do 30-30 twice. I mean, we're talking about trendsetters. That's top of the food chain. Those are some of the highs. Talk about those.
Well, one thing I've said to people in the past when they ask me about my power, I've always had power. And the way I describe power is I have bat speed. And so you have to have that. And, you kind of learn how to cheat to power a little bit, like start earlier, look for the ball in, just you have that mindset. This is what you're doing. And if the pitcher throws it there, you got him. If he doesn't, then he might get you. But that's how you do that. That's how you think about, driving the ball. But my passion really was stealing bases. And I always did that, even in the minor leagues when I was with the Tigers. I mean, it was something that, I loved doing. I enjoyed it. I was good at it. And when I got to the National League, it was about 180 degrees from where Detroit was. Detroit was very base at a time. Hey, let Gibby hit the 3-run homer. Let Darrell Evans hit the 3-run homer, whatever. They didn't really care about stealing bases and trying to make things happen. When I got to the Mets, right away, Davey was like, look, you're on your own. We want you to run until you prove that you can't do it. And so that was the kind of manager I really thrived under. So I give a lot of credit to Davey. But yeah, just being in the National League and learning how, guys pitch you. And there was a difference in the league back then. There's no question about that. I think Wally will even vouch for that because he played a little bit in the American League. But it's a different style of game with the pitcher hitting. You got AstroTurf. You just got a different feel in a lot of stadiums. It suited my game well.
It really is. It is a lot different. I remember, Hojo, when I got traded after the 88 season to Minnesota. Believe it or not, I thought I went back to AAA because it was totally a nightmare. Some of those stadiums were old, disgusting, whatever and stuff.
Yeah.
But even in Minnesota, Tom Kelly was my manager, and and they didn't want you to steal bases. You know, we had Kent
No.
Herbeck, Gary Gaetti. We had all these guys that had some power, and it was base to base, wait for the 3-run homer, and it was totally not the style that I was used to coming up with the Mets, you know, in all those years. And I was
That's
frustrated when I went to Minnesota. I was there that one year, and I remember Jim Leland called me. He says, "Wally, can you play third base?" I says, "Jimmy, fuck, I've never played third base in my life." He says, "Well, I need you to come over here and play third base." But just to go back to the National League was an absolute blessing. I know that it was. I finished my career in Seattle, but I played for Lou Piniella then, and you know, he was more a National League type of manager. But,
Yes, he was. Yes.
no, I mean, those are good times. That to me was baseball. The game has changed a little bit, but you know, I mean, they've got some of these rules that they put in. What do you think about some of those rules? You know, the ghost runner at second base in extra innings. Is that? I know they don't do it in the playoffs, but come on. I just heard that this morning that the Pioneer League, which is an independent league, was using a bigger baseball to see how it worked.
Oh my God.
Come on.
No.
What are they thinking?
Well, I don't know, man. I really don't know. Some of the rules nowadays, I don't understand. I mean, I understand why they implemented them because, you know, stealing a base is the easiest thing to do in the world now.
Yeah.
Pitchers can't throw over to first more than twice, disengage. You know, they can't do all those things. They pretty much just let runners do what they want. The bases are bigger, just a different thing. And the reason I can say that with confidence is that before they changed the rules, stolen bases weren't really happening that often. And it wasn't a weapon that it used to be. And,
Yeah, it's
and
definitely
then all of
a
a
weapon.
sudden,
I don't know. It's a few years
yes.
ago that when they started implementing these rules, I was in the Atlantic League managing, and we were like the pigeons. We had to try everything out, you know. And when they did the bigger bases, it made first base to second base 4 inches closer, and stealing a base is, you know, nip and tuck. 4 inches is 4 inches. But yeah, no, I mean, some of the things that they've done, the bigger bases probably helped. Less injury at first base, not running into the guys at first base and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. We were.
I
They
tell you
don't
what.
want me to say this to the pigeons, but we were.
Well, I'll tell you another thing. I would change now in the game is everybody's wearing those big oven mitts, you know, in their hand. So those things are an extension of your hand. If you think about it, and they're huge. I mean,
Yep.
I don't think there's a limit. I don't know the rule, so maybe I'm misspeaking here, but I've not heard of a rule about how long that thing could be. But these guys put the oven mitt on, it's sticking out about, you know, 4 inches. That's a huge advantage in my opinion.
You know, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought of it because, you know, if you're a hockey fan, you know, those goalies have meticulous rules about every single piece of padding that, you know, everything, you know, I mean, literally everything has a rule by it. And if you violate the rule, some people will tell you it cost the Montreal Canadiens a Stanley Cup many moons ago. Who knows? Anyway, on an illegal stick. But that's neither here nor there. You know, the one thing I will say as a, you know, I guess some people would say traditionalist, but I'm really not. You know, if the rules, the shadow runner has, and eliminating the shift, and also the pitch clock, which, you know, has shortened the game, and the television ratings are higher, and there's no denying that if you believe that there is a connection. And I do like the shadow runner, Hojo. Don't take that away.
Yeah.
I do love it.
I totally get it. I totally get it because, you know, you can wreck your bullpen for days if you go extra innings that long. But, you know, I don't know. I guess with today's game, you know, there's certain things that are okay. I'd say the biggest thing that I like is the fact that they took the shift away to that extent. Because when you start putting a second baseman in short right field, that kind of goes against the spirit of what the game is supposed to be. And it's not always that easy to hit the ball the other way. And a lot of times, especially for me, but a lot of times, let's say like a David Ortiz, if he's trying to hit a single to left field, that's a win for whoever they're facing, because if they can keep him in the ballpark and put him on first base, he's clogging the bases, number one, and he's not hitting the ball out of the ballpark. So there's certain things where you could drop a bunt down. Well, if some big hitter, if Alonso wants to drop a bunt down to beat a shift or whatever, then that's a win for the team he's facing. They don't care if he gets a single. So there's a lot of give and take. There's consequences to every rule that they make. And so I do agree though with the spirit of the shift, because I think it's more fair to be able to play it like that, where you got to stay in the dirt.
Let's talk about you coming to the Mets from the Tigers. You won the championship in '84. Didn't play much in the postseason. Had a good year.
No.
The Tigers were great. When Jack Morris threw that no-hitter in early April, did you know right then? I mean, you were just such a superior baseball. That was a superior baseball team to anything. I think you were like 34-6 at one point. When you came to the Mets, were you happy? You're leaving a world champion to come to a team that's on the rise. How did you feel about that?
Well, at first I was disappointed. I mean, only because when I first heard the news, I was a little disappointed because I was looking forward to getting my ring and celebrating with my teammates that were there. But when that was taken away, I mean, I understand that it's part of the game. But when I found out literally in the next minute that I was going to the Mets, I was extremely happy about that, because it put me in the National League where I felt like that suited my game more. I knew the team was on the rise, very much like Detroit was. A bit younger though, but still on the rise. And then, having Davey over there, that was huge, because, as Wally can tell you, one of the best things about Davey is that he thought outside the box a little bit. He figured out ways to use every player on his roster in some fashion that's going to help the team win. And that's all it was. And Davey did a great job of that. And yeah, that Tiger team, we were 35-5 to start the year. It was an unbelievable team. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
I just saw some of those guys recently up in Michigan.
Hojo, I think back and all the talk when you did get traded to the Mets. I think it was '84 you came over, if I'm right.
Yep, winter of '84.
All the big talk, and it was huge talk. When we got Keith Hernandez, we got Gary Carter, but nobody talks about the Howard Johnson that came over there in '84. I mean, you were a huge part of that team going forward, and nobody really talks about it. I just, I'm looking at the statistics and stuff like that, and we had missing ingredients. We got Ray Knight, we had you. It was really Mookie, Hubie, Brooks, us guys coming up together, Lenny Dykstra, all those guys came up together, but those were three huge ingredients. And I got to thank you. I mean, we're good friends. I know that. We need to fish again together.
Yeah,
by
you
the
and I
way.
are buddies.
Those were probably the three biggest moves that Frank Cashin probably made. I know that he got Darling from Texas and Walt Terrell and all that kind of stuff, but we had a pretty good core. We had a few missing pieces, and I got to tell you, man, you were one of them, and nobody even talks about it. I'm certain. I hope that the social media people, after we have this show, are going to say, look at some stats, figure it out, and go from there.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you look at the numbers and you judge them over time. Now, time has gone on, and some of the numbers that I was able to put up, they're are still standing. But I was happy. Frank Cashin did a great job. He got all those players, and he had a vision, and he saw what these guys could become. He got some older guys, he got some younger guys, and he built a winner basically by getting winning players into the system, whether it was coming up from the minor leagues or as a player.
Those players. You can't buy those players, and that's what Frank did. He went out and traded for guys. We traded, I think it was Rick Owenby and maybe Neil Allen for Keith Hernandez, which I mean, they
mean,
weren't terrible players, you know.
No, not terrible.
And indirectly, Hojo, you were part of the Gary Carter trade because they get you from the Tigers 3 days later.
Yeah.
They trade the third baseman, Hubie Brooks, to Montreal as part of the Gary Carter deal. So in an indirect way, you're part of that trade too. And, some people will tell you that was the last ingredient the team needed.
Oh, there's
Bruce,
no doubt.
let me tell you a quick story here. Hojo, show your first 2 fingers on your right hand. No, put them together. You see the difference in fingers, Bruce? This guy had the best sinker. I never faced a pitcher that had a better sinker when he was playing third base, and it was heavy. He'd throw that ball to second base. I'd have to try to turn a double play. After I turned the double play, my hand was so freaking sore I couldn't even walk the next day. So that's why I had to just bring that up, because you did. You could have pitched.
Oh yeah, I had the hands to be on the mound. I could have pitched, but I was thinking about our the podcast last night. Knowing I was going to be on with you today, and I just started, all these memories were coming into my head about some of the wild throws I'd make at second base, and some of the balls that would just like take off. And a couple of times they went to right field. It was just one of those weird deals. I had to start the ball off so far from looking at you to your right.
Yeah.
So the ball would tail back. I mean, that's how I had to throw the ball. Crazy.
You did get me killed a couple of times, but that's all right.
I know.
I survived.
I had to buy you a few beers. I had to buy you a couple of beers now and then. We made a great team, especially when we were playing cards. Wally and I cleaned up playing cards.
Nobody could beat us
in
at cards.
Poker, whatever.
Played pinochle, hearts, whatever we played in cards. There was nobody. We stole their money, but it was
we stole
money. Bought me new golf clubs. Did all that kind of stuff with it.
Yeah. We took their lunch money.
You bought new golf clubs. That's awesome, man.
That was good stuff.
So you guys teamed up on the plane rides and the card games?
Oh yeah, we play hearts. We do whatever.
All right.
Yeah.
So Hojo, who is better? Be honest. Who is better, the '84 Tigers or the '86 Mets? Who was a better team?
Wow, I'm gonna say the Mets, only because I feel like from top to bottom, a little bit better team. Just when you look at the level of player and the age that they are. In Detroit, it was a little bit of an older team, but both had the very same ingredients. I mean, I would even say it's a tie. It's almost a tie, because you had starting pitching. If there's 2 guys, I told this to Jack Morris the other day. I said, there's 2 guys in the world that if my life depended on it, we had to win a game. You pitch one game and Doc Gooden pitches the other. And I got to play behind both those guys. So, it starts with that. That's number one. And then just kind of goes right on down. The Tigers rotation was maybe a little bit more established than the Mets were. Mets were still on the rise. Position player wise, we were a lot younger with the Mets. Aside from Ray, I think everybody was pretty young, and so and very homegrown. And the Tigers did a good job of getting some guys that were in their prime, and they aged well for a couple of years, and they won that series, and it was pretty special. But you have to build from within, and you got to have starting pitching, number one.
Nope, I agree. Pitching is the whole key, Hojo. What do you think about the Mets right now? I mean, they're only half a game out of the wild card. The Braves got a lot of guys hurt. I don't know if they got the pitching. I mean, they're really not any. There's no number one. I can tell you that.
Yeah, there's no number one. I like Quintana. He's pretty good.
Yeah, no, he's a good pitcher. I just don't know. You go into a short series if you're able to overcome the Braves, wild card. Can you compete with the other number ones and number twos? I don't know. The Mets are hot right now. They've won 7 or 8 in a row. I don't know exactly what it is, but they played pretty good of late.
Yeah, they played very good. I give them a lot of credit because about a week ago they were the sky was falling. You know, they couldn't win a game, and then all of a sudden, you know, what game at a time, and things happen, and next thing you know, it's 7 in a row or 8 in a row, whatever it is. But the key element of that whole thing is they're beating the teams they have to beat.
Yeah, I didn't even know who Mendoza was. I knew he was a bench coach, whatever. But as much as I didn't think so early in the year, this guy's done a good job with his ball club. Maybe one of the better jobs in the game because he kept these guys together. You know, I know Stearns made some trades for Iglesias and Martinez, or they signed Martinez, whatever, and a couple other guys, and it really made a big difference. That's what kind of really turned the team around. But what do you think?
I agree. They've done a good job of bringing people in and finding pieces, and I think that's important. You're not always trying to trade for the guy who's going to be your everyday player, but maybe you try to trade for a piece. This guy can hit left-handers. He can hit right-handers. You know, whatever. You know, there's not as much platooning anymore like there used to be. But the Mets, I think last year when they brought those young kids up halfway through, I think they had a vision that if those kids could get some experience and then you add some pieces in the next season and your superstar guys do well, right? The pitching is held together for the most part. They lost, was it Senga? They lost him, the Japanese guy. Well, they lost him, but they filled it in. I mean, last night I think, if I can remember, I think his McGill started, and he's been a hit or miss guy, but he pitched very well. So they're getting good performances out of certain guys, and you got to have that. And they're beating the teams they have to beat. You're not always going to beat the best teams, but you got to beat the teams that you're better than.
No, you're right. I think you got to have those guys that can overachieve. If you got the guys that can overachieve a little bit, your superstars are supposed to do what they're supposed to do. But they're playing good right now. Who knows? We'll see. I guess down the road we'll find out.
Yeah.
You know, in the since the All-Star game, the Mets starting pitching, the ERA is the lowest in base. I mean, Sean Manaea and Peterson have really elevated their. Manaea is back to being like he was with the Giants, and Peterson's pitching better than he ever has. The other spots, McGill, you've got the guy Blackburn. He's hurt now, so they're a little. But you got to say, man, Peterson. Big time. And Manaea, especially, man, he has been unhittable last couple of games.
Yeah, Manaea, I've seen pitch. I think he was with Oakland at some point. I saw Quintana with the White Sox at some point when I was coaching with Seattle. So I know these guys. I know they're quality. Are they number ones? Well, they're pitching like number ones. And we'll see, you know, when you start facing those good teams that can do damage to you, that handle you well, then we're going to find out. Like the Mets-Braves series is coming up pretty soon is very, very important. And that's a team that they're going to have to beat. It's a good team. So when you play good teams, you got to beat good teams. The Mets so far, they haven't been able to prove really yet that they can beat the good teams like consistently. Like you can go into Atlanta, win 2 out of 3. Go to San Diego, win 2 out of 3. They haven't done that yet. In spurts, they played well, but they haven't showed that they could go in there and do that. And I think that's kind of the difference between a winning team that goes far and just a decent team.
Hey, before we get to Stern's comments, because no doubt you'll probably have something to say on that. 2 things first off, we got an email. For you, Hojo, okay? And the emailer was Jeff Cohen, and he specifically wanted me to ask you about your barbecuing prowess, okay? Yeah. Are you big time? Now listen, Wally catches him. I don't know if you catch him. Is he a catch him? You're a cook 'em guy. He wanted me to ask you about your barbecuing prowess, and then I have a follow-up question from him.
Well, I know Jeff runs a barbecue company, and he's got a podcast, and he's done different things, and they're good people. I love the barbecue. I'll eat barbecue every day. My favorite is always brisket, so that's a no-brainer.
That's the follow-up. You
And
wanted me to ask you, how do you do your barbecue brisket?
So the key
Bruce,
is
I got to tell you
things.
something really quick. There is nobody in the world that drinks more fucking iced tea than this fucking guy right here. You probably have
Man, I
iced tea
can
in
crush
front
it.
of you. You backed off?
It's in the other room, but yes, 100%. I'll drink unsweet tea all day long and sleep like a baby. But when I get to cooking that brisket, man, couple things. You got to inject it. You got to make a brine. You got to make a some kind of sauce. We use Lipton onion soup mix as the base, and we add things to that to kind of add some spice and some beef flavor to it.
Oof.
And we inject the meat ahead of time. That's critical. And then I know some people cook them hard and quick and fast, but I try to go slow. And after a couple of hours, I'll take them off. I'll wrap them in foil. They're not going to take much more smoke after that, but I want them to kind of baste in the juices that I've injected and the juices that the meat has. And then the absolute last thing is critical. When that thing is done, when it's 198, you take that thing off and you wrap it in towels and you put it in a cooler and you let it rest for at least 2 hours.
2 hours?
I do the same thing with a prime rib.
Oh, that dude. See, I never knew that. I didn't know you cooked prime rib.
Oh, yeah. No, you do the same thing. You take the prime rib out at like 120 and you wrap it in a towel and you
Take
put
it
it
out
in
early.
and you let it sit. And it is 100% perfect. Hojo, you got me hungry, brother.
Wow.
I might. It's going to take me about 4 hours to get there. Have dinner ready tonight when you get there.
I'll take care of you, my friend. You know that.
Here's the other non-baseball, non-Stearns, the last one. Because I know you represent big time. Your email says.
Oh.
Now, hold on. Because I do not represent what you. Here's what I represent. You got this now, Hojo? You got it. This is your world champion this year, Hojo. Okay, right here. The JETS Jets. Howard is a huge Tampa Bay Buck fan. How much did you love Tom Brady on your team?
It was fun. I feel for the Jet fans. The Bucks were a lot like that. They had not won. They couldn't win. And I was a fan back in the day when they wore the orange, and they weren't good, but I was always pulling for them. And when Brady came over, every bad team, think about it like this. So every bad team, their fans think, God, if we only had a great quarterback, if we only had Tom Brady, if we only had this guy, if we only had that guy. Well, that came true. So the Bucks were able to get Brady. And sure enough, man, it was like magic. You could see him getting better every week. I'd watch every game on TV if I wasn't there, and you could see quarters turn into halves. They'd play a great quarter or a great half, and then they'd struggle. Next game might be the opposite. They'd play a great half, maybe 3 quarters. And then eventually halfway through the season, things were clicking, man, and it was like music. But you could see flashes of it every game. Yeah. It was incredible to watch.
Well, that's great. Let's get to David Stern's comment. I think we have the audio. Marsh, if you're able to drop this in, Wally, did you want to ask about this? And then we'll see if Marsh can drop the audio right in for us here.
Yeah, no, I'd like to ask, but I want Hojo. I have one more question. Hojo, look at that picture I just sent you on your phone.
Oh, my God.
Is that a fish?
Oh, no, it's many fish.
Oh, no.
Dude, that's tuna.
Wow.
See what you're missing, brother? We got to get together and fish some more together.
Hojo, do you fish?
Oh, yeah, I love to fish.
Oh, you love to fish? Well, you grew up see, I'm from Long Island. I'm not a fisher guy, but you grew up in Tampa. It's like, seems reasonable.
Yeah. I was a saltwater guy, but when my wife and I went out to go see Wally, we hung out with them for about a week, and I wanted to fish with Wally. I was like, yeah, let's go, man. So we were in Kona, and I remember we caught those fish that day, and we were in the water maybe about 45 minutes to an hour, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, that line snaps, and he's going. We got hit, and so sure enough, fish is on. He starts to set the drag, and I see this sea monster, jump up out of the water. I was like, it ended up breaking off. Okay, it broke it off. However, that was my first actual visual of seeing a fish like that jump out of the water, and I could not believe it. So I was hooked. I went out and bought a boat the next year. I bought a boat. I had it in Florida, man. I used to fish on that thing every day. It was so good. Loved it. So Wally, because of Wally, and I still got rods and stuff from that boat. I got reels from that boat, and it's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. I just have such a great time on the oceans. It's great.
We had fun, brother.
Yeah, we did, man. Yes, we did.
Hey, if we have that audio, Marsh, I'm not sure if we have it, but could you play that? If not, we'll let Wally describe it in case Hojo missed the entire cut.
As somebody who analyzes player value, what does the most valuable player look like?
I think he looks like the guy who runs out the shortstop every day for us at 7 o'clock. It's been an unbelievable season to watch. We're getting to the point, I think, where we're talking about perhaps the greatest individual position player season in the history of this franchise.
All right, Hojo, he puts it on a tee. What do you think?
Well, I'm glad he said that about his players, because that's good that he says that, and I know, I'm pretty sure he believes it. I love Lindor as a player. I think he's tremendous, but there's a lot of great players. I'm not talking about necessarily my seasons, but there's players through the history of the Mets who've had unbelievable, like, single game position player seasons. I mean, some of Keith's years, unreal. Straw, Kingman, some of those guys, unbelievable. And it's hard to, turn your eyes away from that, but, that's his opinion. And I'm not going to be the one to say, well, he's wrong, because, we all have our opinion. And I'm glad he said that about Lindor. I think what he's most excited about, Stearns I'm talking about, what he's most excited about is that the kid got off to a brutal start to the season and has fought his way out of that paper bag, right? And figured out a way to be productive, and he's having a great year. Yeah. And so I think that's what he's trying to say, but I don't know, man. I wouldn't say some of the pitchers. How about Doc Gooden? Oh, he's a pitcher, so.
He was talking about just position players, in fairness.
Players, yeah.
Yes.
Pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good, but I don't know if it's in the top 3, I would imagine. Top 5 for sure. So.
No, I think, Hojo, you're 100% right. I think he's a great player. He's been a great Met. But later on, or earlier on, whatever, in the show, I'm going to go over some statistics about a lot of players. And fortunately, your name is one of them. But I'm going to do that later. So.
Okay. Sounds
Hojo,
good.
it's been awesome having you on, man. We really appreciate you taking the time to come on and chat it up with us.
Anything for my partner, man. I'm taking good care of this guy.
Bruce, you don't know what his name really is. It's called the Sheik.
The Sheik
is here.
The Sheik.
That's me, the Sheik.
Well, how about this one, Wally? How about this one? Hey, because of your name, you got free food at Howard Johnson's. The last Howard Johnson's. I don't know if you guys know Long Island well. The last Howard Johnson's I remember is right by MacArthur Airport. If you guys know that area, if you remember that airport, Howard John. But you would go into Howard Johnson's to get free food?
Oh yeah, yeah. So every time we go in there to eat, my mom would say something, my dad would say something, and they say, "Oh, he eats for free." I could go in there any time of the day and get ice cream for free.
Nice.
That's why I'm addicted to ice cream. I love it. So my
your mom
ice cream
had a vision. Howard Johnson
yeah.
would eat for free. They figured it out through life that you were going to be able to go through the minor leagues. You make $600-700 a month, and all of a sudden you're eating free.
That's right. I made it for
Joe.
free, man.
Again, brother, hey, I want to thank you a ton. I'll see you soon. I don't know if Bruce got any more questions, but
No, I'm good. I'm good. It's been a thrill, Hojo. Really, as a guy who grew up loving the Mets and everything
again,
about it.
you're
Great
gonna
thrill
have
to
to
have you on.
listen to this because I'm gonna blow a few people up because you're on that list, brother.
Well, I appreciate it, buddy, and I'd do anything for you. You know that, and
No, I know.
I think it's a great idea that you have a podcast. I think this is a great idea because people in New York love you, man. They have you on a throne, man. You're the guy. You deserve to be.
We're gonna give it a shot, see how it goes. So far, it's been great. But you and I had Eddie, I had Mookie so far.
Yeah.
I had Cohen, the broadcaster. So I'm having my best people early. I'm going to save some guys for the winter, but you guys have been absolutely wonderful, and people want to hear about it. I'm going to have some of the younger Mets and go over some of those guys too later on, probably maybe in the winter or whatever.
Yeah.
But, just talk to them.
Yeah.
But I think the people want to know. It's been 40 years, Hojo, since we won
40 years.
One of those.
Unbelievable.
So,
40
I think it's
years.
important that people want to talk to us. They want to hear about us. I seen it when we did the show last month or whatever it was. The following that we have is huge. So, all right, buddy, I want to thank you, Hojo. I'll see you in a month.
We got to do that. We got to get some of that.
That's what I want. Thank you, buddy.
See you guys.
See you,
Howard.
It's a fucking team effort. Do it.
All right, great to have Howard Johnson on the show. We certainly appreciate much of his time. Wally, it's great to see the outstanding friendships you still have. I think a lot of people, me myself included, would say, "Well, he's a feisty guy, man. I wonder how many of his teammates would get irritated by the guy." But apparently, you seem to be a common thread. Everybody loves you.
Hey, Hojo and I have a great relationship. We always have. We fished in Hawaii together. We've done a lot of things together. And Hojo's not the only one. I've done a lot of things with other people. We got a show coming up in October, the 12th and 13th in New Jersey that I guess I'm promoting another guy's show, but it's a lot of the 86 guys. There's probably 15 or 20 of us. It's the 12th and 13th of October, but it's going to be a great show. It's a yearly thing where we can all get together, reminisce, and just have a great time.
All right. We've got some social media interaction to get to. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a lot of different avenues for you to watch, listen, interact. On X, it's Wally_Backman6. YouTube, it's youtube.com/86. That's 86'D. Email the Wally Backman Show at gmail.com. You can get him on Facebook too at Wally Backman. Just look for the big plate of food and the big smile. And you can get me on email at chbr40 at gmail.com. All right, Wally, first one. We've got, hold on a second. This came in from John, and I hope I don't butcher the name too bad. Mikulowski. Wally, do you run a charter? Do you run any sort of a fishing service, Wally?
I do. I haven't. I used to do it in Hawaii. I still have my captain's license that I got back in 80 something. I do it more for friends and family, and I'll do it for. I've met so many people fishing that I've never known that are fans, and I love to take people out fishing. I love them to catch a fish, something they've never done, and I get more enjoyment out of if you, Bruce, were catching a fish than me catching a fish. I've caught plenty.
Wow. Well, let me just say this: if I catch it, I ain't taking it off the hook. Not that I'm a sissy or anything. I just don't want to smell like fish all day. So, of the three most popular outdoor activities, golf, hunting, fishing, safe to say fishing is your overwhelming choice.
Well, all three. I love the outdoors. I love to, I'm a very avid fly fisherman. I catch and release everything that I catch. I tie my own flies. we do keep the fish that we catch in the ocean. It's great. I love to hunt. I love the action, interacting with my son, my family that we go hunting with. Is something I learned with my father many, many years ago. I don't have to kill anything anymore. I don't have to do any of that stuff. It's just being together and having a good time. It's what I think life is all about.
All right. Well, when you come to Arizona now, before spring training, before that, I do not hunt. I have, it's not that I don't have the ability to. I just don't want to. I do not fish because I do not want to drive 3 hours to a lake. But dang, man, you bring those golf clubs, boy, because we're going at it.
I'm gonna kick your ass in golf.
All right, you are on second piece of social media. This is from the spirit of this question is awesome. This is from Jeff Weiderman. Hey, Wally, do you get kicked off boats as often as you got kicked out of ball games?
Hey, if I got kicked off a boat, I'd drowned in the Pacific Ocean. The water's 54 degrees. You don't last very long. But no, I do miss getting kicked out of the games right now. I don't ever want to get kicked off the boat. I had a trip on the boat 2 days ago that when we caught all those tuna, the ocean was beautiful. I was 54 miles out. I was able to run about 20 miles an hour coming in for about a half hour. And then it took me an additional 5.5 hours. It was not fun. The ocean can eat you up and spit you out. And we got back, but to go only 7 miles an hour coming in was not fun. So anybody that listens to this that fishes in the ocean, respect the water because it's nasty.
Last one comes in from Sean Cosgriff. And right after the Mookie Wilson episode, just wanted to let us know that he really enjoyed that, and it was a great episode. Wally, literally hundreds, not dozens, not a few, hundreds. And I'm glad you put me in charge of culling through these. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Hundreds and hundreds. So appreciate the response, everybody. Keep it coming. Last licks is last up. All right, we like to call this Last Licks. It's our final segment of the episode. It's a chance for Wally and I to get just a couple of things. Could be baseball, could be sports, could be whatever, to divest our conscience of these things that have been building up. Wally, what do you got for us last lick?
Oh, my God. We got to go to the White Sox. I coached for this team in the minor leagues for 3 years or whatever, and there's still some people there in the minor leagues, good people that really know baseball, and I don't know what has happened to this organization. I'm looking at it, and they're 39 and a half games out of fourth place. Fourth place, not first place. I mean, they have to go like 8-13, which 8-13 to tie the worst record ever in baseball. I think it's the Mets, but
no, eight to break it. Eight ties it right, and the Mets would have the work because they played 160 games that year.
Right. So,
right.
This is a bad team. I can remember 4 years ago, I have friends in Chicago that, the future is coming. The future is coming. Well, that future has never came. They've traded people away, and I know they've made changes. And I'm just thinking as a player, to lose that many games, I might want to go by a tree and hang myself.
I mean, I can only imagine you, pretty feisty, very fiery guy, and a 3-game losing streak. I
would have been in fights in the clubhouse. I'm thinking this is crazy. This is not good. This can't be fun. And I know the players aren't having fun and they're disgusted, but they got 32 wins. They played 140
Hey, Wally.
some games.
Wally, check this out. The two worst teams in the National League, the Rockies and the Marlins combined, are 73 games under 500. The White Sox alone are 79. I shouldn't laugh, but because I love the city of Chicago. It's all good by me, but I mean, it's so bad you have to laugh.
No, outside of New York, Chicago is my favorite place to go have dinner. And right now, I wouldn't want to be a player in Chicago playing for the White Sox to go to dinner because you are definitely a bum. So they don't want nothing to do with you. So I guess you got to go through the fast food, the McDonald's and all those restaurants to get your dinner, because you better not go sit down in a nice, expensive restaurant and have a steak.
All right, Wally, I'm going to hit you with just one. And this is so near and dear to my heart. Growing up on Long Island, loving the Mets fan, not Mets fan boy, Mets fan. Love all the teams, the Knicks, the Rangers, the Mets. Not tonight. Well, tonight kicks off the season. But, Wally, I want to make my official 2024 Super Bowl prediction. You ready?
Okay.
All right. Now, you keep track of this, okay? I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles, even though I can't stand anything from Philadelphia. I'm going with the Eagles. And you ready, Wally? J-E-T-S.
So the Jets have got to play the 49ers, Am I right?
That's right, Monday Night Football.
The Jets and the 49ers. The Jets are underdogs, but I got another question for you to make it my last question.
Yeah.
I want to know about who this fireman Ed is for the Jets.
So Fireman Ed, he is supposedly the spiritual leader of the JETS Jets chant, okay? And he's got a fire helmet, and I think he's a legitimate fireman, and he's been a Jet season ticket, and he goes there, and everybody waits, and he gets them all fired up, and then he gets up, and he goes, and I don't do it as well as he does, but he contorts his body, and 80,000 people yell, Jay! Then he does the E, and everybody, E! And it's just awesome. Haven't heard it enough over the last 13 years. We haven't made the playoffs in 13 years. That's the longest streak in the NFL. It ends this year, Wally.
It could be this year. I'm rooting for him. Trust me, I've been a Jets fan for a long time. I can remember watching the games when they had the seats at Shea Stadium where they had to roll the seats out because they did the games there and stuff. But no, I'm rooting for him. I think it's going to be a competitive year. It would be nice to see New York like I seen it in '86 when the Giants won the Super Bowl and we won the World Series. So it would be nice to get the big city that's supposed to be the big city, which is the big city, get them back to where they compete every year and get a chance. So I'm looking forward to the season.
All right, great. Enjoyed it very much, Wally. We'll see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. We're keeping our guest next week under wraps for now. Thanks to Howard Johnson. It's 86, the Wally Backman Show.